Now, I'm joined now by two guests from Washington. Mica Mosbacher is a Republican fundraiser who's working on President Trump's 2020 re-election campaign, and Joshua Geltzer was Senior Director of Counterterrorism on the National Security Council under both Presidents Obama and Trump. A warm welcome to you both. Thanks for joining us. Joshua Geltzer, do you agree and recognize this as a big win for President Trump tonight?
You know, the decision today in and of itself was, of course, a victory for the government, at least for now, on this incarnation of the travel ban. But I think there's a broader context here. There's a 17-month saga in which the federal courts have scrutinized carefully all three iterations of this travel ban, have said no to various versions of it, and ultimately forced the president, by his own admission, to shave down what he had done originally. And even though I disagree with this result at the end, that process and the role of the federal courts throughout in scrutinizing the executive branch, that's something of a victory for the rule of law.
It's true, isn't it, Mica Mosbacher? It's a very different ban that he's got through. It's not actually the ban he wanted at all.
It's much more narrow in scope, but I suppose the third time is the charm. It has been a bumpy ride since January of 2017 when he first signed the executive order for the travel ban, and there have been 50-plus legal actions, including those you just outlined in your introduction. Most importantly, this is a victory for the president and really a win for the American people and their national security interests, because it is protecting them from terrorists and potential bad actors coming in from, may I just finish for a second? These are countries, these 7 countries that are listed that are now banned are countries where they do not meet the international standards of vetting.
Okay.
And so it is protecting
Mica,
the sovereignty
let me just ask you on that one,
of the American people.
Because it is an extraordinary list to look at now. It doesn't have Pakistan or Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia, where the 9/11 bombers came from, or Iraq. How many terrorists have you got in America coming through from North Korea?
I think that, again, that this is a precaution. Now, some of these countries that are off the list have certainly managed to meet the minimum national standards. But what is most important is, and I want to bring this up, this is not a ban against Muslim countries. This is not a ban against Muslim countries. It's not a ban against the 1.9 billion Muslim population. It's a ban against countries of which we cannot inappropriately vet individuals.
Do you understand why this now helps national security? I guess many of these countries were put on a list under the Obama administration as well. They were considered problem countries long before. Josh?
I don't see this ban as addressing real national security threats. You know, no national from any of the countries affected by the third travel ban, the one that went to the court, has been responsible for a single death from terrorism on U.S. soil since 1975. It's just not responsive to today's terrorist threats, which are real, but which this does not respond to. If anything, I see this as potentially counterproductive. And to that point, you see the example of Chad, which, when it was added to the list, to its surprise and the surprise of many of us, quickly withdrew its troops from the critical counterterrorism fight they had been waging in West Africa against a group called Boko Haram there. So a lot of us who worked in national security signed on to a brief telling the court that we thought this was counterproductive for national security. And of course, the court didn't answer that one way or the other. They ruled on the law. It may still be, as I view, bad policy.
I wonder if it worries you when somebody who's actually worked with the National Security Council, who can actually see this as counterproductive, is telling you straight that this is working against America's interests.
I disagree, because we have to look at 9/11. We even have to look at the sloppy background checks by the FBI, which did allow in terrorists. There was some intelligence available, and it wasn't shared with other agencies. This is a complex problem, but I have to say that when you've got hotbeds, notably Syria, for example, as an international hotbed with insurgents, and absolutely no way that you can look into their backgrounds before they come into the United States. It's yet one precaution. I agree with Joshua. It is a complex issue.
Yeah.
But I would disagree that by continuing with leniency, we are allowing the opportunity for more and more to slip into a porous border in this country.
But I wonder if your president has any credibility left on the immigration policy now, after the most inhumane child separation policy, which he then rode back on, which has left a god-awful mess all the same.
To his credit, he certainly did sign an executive order. Let me say something. As a parent, as a grandparent, those images of children being separated from their parents was heartbreaking.
Well, maybe
and
just as a human.
That, yes, I mean, because first of all, we have to balance our Judeo-Christian principles of compassion in this country and decency with also the need for tighter border security.
Okay. Thank you both very much indeed.
Yeah.
Pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you for joining us.